So let's talk about relationships.
Ooh la la.
No, I don't mean those types. Now, I'm actually talking about relationships in SwiftData, and it can be a tricky concept, but in this video, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about them. We're going to look at how we can add categories to our to-do app from our last video by using a one-to-many relationship. We'll also look at how to manage relationships with some tips and best practices. By the end of this video, you should be a relationship guru like Will Smith in Hitch before he slapped the doo-doo out of Chris Rock. Let's get into this video. Now, if you're actually watching this video, two things to keep in mind here. I'm actually using the Xcode 15 beta, right? So in order to actually work with this, you're going to need the Xcode 15 beta and above. And you also need to make sure as well that keep in mind that because it's a beta, there's actually possible that things can change. Now, I do promise, right? Promise you, have I ever let you down? That if they do make a change, I'll make a new video with like updates to it to show you what's different and whatnot. So if you actually want to follow along, the code should be in the description box with the starter files. Now, there's different kinds of relationships that are actually possible when you're working with like databases, but the one we're going to be focused on in this video is one-to-many, which is quite common. And what we want to do is we want to actually add a category to a, to-do. So it's actually possible for a category to have a bunch of to-dos, but a to-do can only belong to one category. So let's look at our actual real world example to actually make that a bit clearer, right? Let's say, for example, you have a bank account. Now, my favorite bank is Monzo. I don't know what it is. Also, they didn't pay me to mention this either, right? But I don't know what it is about the Monzo app, but it's just super slick and clean. It's one of my favorite apps, right? Anyway, my favorite bank is Monzo. Now, I can actually sign up for Monzo with my personal details. So I can have a account with Monzo. I can only have one version of me with Monzo, so that's the one part of the relationship. But I can actually have many different bank accounts with Monzo, and that's the many part of the relationship. So it's possible for me to have a savings account, business account, personal account. I can have multiple types of accounts, but they must all belong to one type of user. So that's how a one-to-many relationship works. Relationships are really useful. It allows you to basically link data that is unrelated together. Now, if we go into our project, you'll see that we actually have this screen here. If you've downloaded the starter files called create category. So we're able to create a category here and associate with it to do. Now, right now I have this model here called category and it's a strut. But what I want to do is I actually want to turn this into a model, which allows me to have, one category and associate multiple to-dos with this category. So in order to do that, the first thing we're going to need to do is import SwiftData. And when you're working with SwiftData, like I said in the previous video, you can't use structs, you have to use a class. So we're going to need to update this to a class, and we're going to need to mark this with the app model annotation like so. So when you're working with relationships, you need to actually create a link between the two pieces of data. So in our case, what we want to do here is we actually want to associate multiple items with a single category. So just below our title here, we're going to create a new property here called items. Now, another thing to keep in mind as well is that when you're working with a category, we actually don't want there to be duplicate categories possible. Starting with SwiftData, it's actually possible now to actually mark certain properties as unique, so you don't actually have duplicates. So if you type above the title, we can use the attribute macro, and there's an option here called unique. And that will make this property unique. Now, I'll give you all a warning because with the first Xcode beta, I'm pretty sure Apple are aware of this as well. If you actually insert an item with the same name, so let's say, for example, I insert a category with the name food and I do it again, food, it will actually crash. So this is actually not fixed in Xcode 15 beta 1. So in the next beta, I'm hoping this is resolved, but at this moment in time, this does crash, and this is on the Apple forum, so it's not me. People are aware of this. Right. So now that we've made sure that our category is unique here, the next thing we need to do is we actually need to go into our item and create the inverse relationship so you can actually associate a category with an item. So in our item model here, if we just hit enter, we're going to create a new property called category, make it optional. Now, you might be wondering, why am I making optional here and optional on the, the category? It's because it's actually possible for a item to not belong to a category at all. So I don't want to enforce this. I want to either have a category or don't have a category at all. And in order to create the relationship between these two pieces of data, well, these two models, I should say, we need to use the new relationship macro to basically create that link. So let's add this in. So what we've done here is we just specified that this is nullify. I'll explain what this means in a second. But the first thing I want to talk about here is this inverse. So this inverse here is really important because this actually helps you maintain data integrity. So essentially what this means is it's basically creating the link between the two models here using a key path. So that's why it's saying here that create the link for this property using the items property in our category model. Now you have this here called nullify, and what this means is it basically says when you delete an item, how should it delete any of the models or data, I should say, that is associated to this model. So we've got nullify, and if we just click into the documentation, you'll see there's quite a few. So there's no action, nullify, cascade, and deny. Now the one that we've chosen, what this means is that if I actually delete a item from the to-do and it actually does have a category associated with it, it actually won't delete the category. It will just delete the item. But if I also actually change this to cascade, what would actually happen is if I deleted the item, it would actually delete as well also any categories that are associated with that item, which is what we definitely don't want. So that's why we're using nullify. And I'd highly recommend you go and check out the Apple documentation to read up on the other two cases. The next thing we need to do is actually see how to actually create some categories. So let's go back into our create category view. And I'm going to close these tabs because I've got bare tabs open right now. So we'll close that tab. So what we want now is if you start typing in here, you tap on this button, we want to save a category into SwiftData. Now we've already imported that. So the next thing we need to do is we've got our title here to actually bind to this text field. So when someone taps on this button, we actually want to use our context to insert this category into our storage. So the first thing we'll need to do is access that context using the environment. So let's add that in. The next thing we'll do here is we'll just say modelContext.insert. And then what we want to insert here is a category. And that's just going to use the title that is bound to the text field like so. Cool. So this should work. Now we actually don't have a way to see this right now because we don't actually have anything to give us any kind of feedback. Below our section here, we're going to create a new section that just literally shows all of the categories that exist within our storage. So I'll add in the query like so, and this query will now fetch all the categories that are in storage, and then we'll create a new section below here that allows us to simply just loop through and get all of the categories. So let's add that in now. So as you can see here, we've got our section, we've got our for each with our categories, and we're just displaying a text and getting the category title like so. Cool. So right now, if we was to test this out, so I actually have to run this on the simulator because the canvas is a bit doo-doo in this beta. It doesn't work with the keyboard for some reason, but let's just run this on the simulator. So as you can see here, we've just got our app open, and now if we tap on this button to add a new category, we should get this screen. And I've already got a category that I've added before off screen, but if I add a new category now, so you'll see that when we add that, it actually does also insert that and show it in our list here. So now we can have a list and view all of our categories. Now what we want to do as well is we actually want to delete, add the ability to actually remove categories, because what about if I don't want to have this work one anymore? There's no way for me to get rid of it. So in order to do that, pretty simple, on our text here within our for each, we're going to add a swipe action, and then within the swipe action we're just going to add a button, and we'll also as well wrap this in a with animation so it just looks a bit nicer. Okay, cool. So now let's just test this out. So if we just run this again, so we'll go to our new category here, we'll add a new category. So let's just say we'll say chill. And we'll just put like let's put this emoji here, man, and add that in. All right, cool, sweet. So now we've got that, and all we have to do is just on the model context, the delete an item, we just need to call delete on the category. So let's say I actually want to get rid of this work one, I can now swipe across and hit delete and it will remove it, and now we're able to remove categories. Now, one thing that you might not have realized, but if you've tested it out, is that I can actually make this crash. So if I actually swipe on a newly created category that I've created and I hit delete, you'll see that we actually get a crash.
Help me! Help me!
So what's going on here? Well, there's actually two things we need to do, right? And the first thing that, is going on wrong here, we're actually not inserting this data for a category properly. Now, remember before when we set up our model and we actually had on the item, we actually had a inverse relationship here. We're actually not setting this up properly where we're, assigning the items on our category an empty array of items. So the first thing we need to do is actually make sure that when we're inserting into our context, we're also setting the inverse data properly. So let's do that now. So we're going to create a new constant here called category, and this will have an instance of category like so. And then we'll pass in the title. And then after we pass in the title, the next thing we're going to do after we do that is replace this with our category. And then here we're going to set our category.items into an empty array like so. Cool. Sweet. Now, I'm not too sure why. This may be also another bug with this version of Xcode, but when you're working with relationships and you want to update that item in a relationship, you have to do it after the insert or else it doesn't work. So we're going to need to do this. Now, there's one final thing that we need to do as well. And the problem that we've got is that this is actually using this category because it's a model. Behind the scenes, it's actually using a observation, the observation framework to listen to updates. So right now, if we just open up the app, when I actually create a new category, just create anything, and it's inserted it into the list here like so. When we're actually trying to delete it, what's happening is that this category model actually still exists in memory because this title that we're typing in is still bound. So when we try and delete it, it's actually trying to delete this item, but there's actually, because it's got this binding, there's actually another category with that title in memory. So what we actually need to do to stop the crash as well is we need to actually clear whatever is inside of this text field too. So on the actual title, we're just going to set it to an empty string. So now whenever you add a category, this is an empty string and we haven't really got like duplicates of the same model in memory. So let's just run this again. And we create a new category. I'm just gonna call this something random like, hey, add it, return. And then now when I delete it, you'll see that we don't get a crash anymore. We've got a way to add categories, but what we want to do now is we actually go on creating a new to-do. You'll see that we don't have a way to basically attach a category to a, to-do. So what we want to do now is when you're creating a to-do, I want to have the option to select a category. So let's go into our create view, and on here, what we now need to do is I've actually added a property here already for you to store the selected category that someone, is going to actually select that we're going to be working with. And we're going to need to add in a picker onto the screen here to show all of the options that's possible and available to you. So let's add in our query to first of all fetch all our categories. So I'm just going to be lazy and copy this query from the previous file and put that here like so. So put that there. And then below our date picker, we're going to need to create a new section. And the title is going to be an empty string. The selection is going to be bound to this selected category that we have at the top here as a state variable. And then the contents obviously will be the content we put inside of the picker. Just to fix this as well, we need to import SwiftData so we can access it. Because I made the selected category optional, I actually want to give someone the option to not be able to select anything, like, you don't have to choose a category. So in order to implement this within our picker, we're going to have an option called none. We're going to create a text here. It's going to be none. And then we're going to also tag this with nil as an optional category, like so, because that's the type that our picker is binding to. So it's an optional category here. So after this, we're then going to have a for each. And then this is going to loop through all of the categories like so. And then we're going to have our category. Let's move this up. We're going to have our category in. And then this is just going to have a text where it displays the category dot title. And then the tag for this is going to be a category, but it's going to be as an optional category because these two types, well, these two tags need to basically match what it is that we're binding to here, which is an optional category like so. Cool. So we're going to do a bit more styling here, and on the picker, we're going to say we want to hide the labels, and we're going to change the picker style to be inline. So you basically have like the check marks. So just to show you what this looks like, and this is actually probably going to, well, it's not going to crash because I've added this model container for you. So because we've added this model container, it should load the storage for us. So if I go into Canvas and just run this to give you a little preview of what this looks like, you'll see here that we're able to see our first option, which is none, with it being selected. Now, this isn't reading any of the other categories, which is why you don't see all the categories here. So let's just run this on the simulator and see what this looks like for us. And if I go to new to do, you'll now see that we've got a list of all the categories, and by default, because this is nil and this is tagged as nil, that's why none is selected. But if I choose this, you can see we're able to now select all of this. So right now we're selecting stuff, but it's actually not saving the category with the new to do, which is what we want to do now. So I'm just at the bottom here going to create an extension for a function called save. And within this save function, we're actually going to need to create our, to do that we want to save, and also set the data in our relationship as well. So let's add this in. So insert the item that we've bound to into the context, and then we set the category on the item that we're about to inject with the selected category from the picker. And then the selected category from the picker, we then set the inverse by saying I want to append the item we've just inserted onto this category. So this allows us to basically have multiple items associated with a single category here. Now, the reason why I extracted this out into a function called save is because in a few places we want to call this code, and I don't want to duplicate this in multiple places. So where we have the done, we actually want to call the save function, and where we have the create as well, we want to call save as well. So this should now save a category for us. So now let's test this out. So let's run this again and see what happens. So we're going to create a new item and attach it to a category. So we'll create a new to do. So I'm just going to create a new to do here called doctors, and we're just going to say that their appointment is on the 24th. It's pretty important because I ain't trying to die. And we want it to be on the health category. Now you can hit either done or create to create this, but if we hit create now, you should see that we have our new item here. But the problem that we have now is that we don't see our category here at all. So in our content view below our timestamp, we're going to add in a text to just basically show what category this is associated with. So as you can see here, we're just unwrapping the category if an item has one, because remember it's optional, getting a title and applying some styles onto it. So let's see what this looks like. And now you can see that we're able to see the categories associated with our to-do item. So this workout one was already part of the health category. So this looks, I would say this looks pretty nice. It looks pretty decent, don't you think? Now, one small improvement I do want to make is that on the to-dos, I don't like the fact that I don't have like headers here to tell me what each one is. So just very quickly on our modify to-do view. So in here on the section, I'm just going to give this some information. So we're just going to say here like general, and then we're going to say here select a category. And then let's just rerun this and see what this looks like. And on a new to do, we now got more information that I think looks way nicer. Now, in the rest of this video, I'm actually going to show you how to update a relationship as well. And I'm also going to show you some UX best practices in terms of handling empty states to improve, the visual look of your app. But if you're enjoying this video so far, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And also let me know in the comment section what type of videos you're interested in, related to like dub or anything in general related to iOS development. I'd love to hear what you'd like to see from me, because, I do these videos for you. So like I said, what would we do if you want to update a category? Because right now, if I go into workout and I want to edit it, we actually don't have anything related to updating that category. I might want to remove this from the health, category. So what we want to do is on our update view, we first of all need to actually grab all of the possible categories and also have a state property for helping us store the selected category that someone's chosen. And you can see I've already added the state category for you within the update to do view. The only thing we need to add in here is the query to actually fetch all of those categories. So let's just go into our create category view and we'll copy this query here and we'll just put that here like so. And then what we actually want to do now is that when you're loading an item, it might already have a category selected. So when this list appears, we actually want to assign this selected category whatever is currently within the item. So just below our navigation title, we're going to say on appear perform. And within this on appear, we're going to say is equal to the item current category like so. So this will ensure that on the UI, you basically see what is currently selected. Now we're going to copy what we've done before. So we're just going to update this to say general. All we need to do now is just copy our section from when we want to create a new to do. So this section with a category, and then just place that underneath here like so. Now, the final thing we'll need to do is that when someone actually taps on the update button, we actually now need to set the items category to the selected category that is currently, selected on the screen. So after here, we're just going to say item dot category is equal to selected category. Now you might be wondering, why do I need to set this, but not like the title and all that other stuff? Well, in my other video, if you remember, because these are bound, so these properties like title, timestamp are all bound to our UI, such as text field, date picker, toggle, and all of that. The nice thing about SwiftData is that it actually automatically saves this to SwiftData for us. So we don't need to manually update it. Every time you make a change using one of these bindable UI properties, it will actually automatically update and save that for us. Now, this selected category is not actually bound to anything on our model, so we need to manually update this so it can automatically save, which is why we need to do it specifically on this. So if we just run this now and let's just see what happens. So now on the go workout, we're going to edit this, and rather than this being part of the health, I want to just say none. And if I hit update, you'll now see that it removes the category for me. But if I go to edit on here and choose this G I'm so stupid sometimes. I just like to mess around too much. But if I choose this and I hit update, you'll now see it shows that category. So we've now got this working with updating categories and whatnot. And if I now go on to my new category, and if I was to delete a category like this one and go back, you'll now see that it actually automatically removes that for us from the item as well. So we've now got CRUD working exactly how we want it to. Now, one thing I do want to improve though is that if we actually go on our new category here and we delete all of our categories, right now it's just like an empty block with a title, which doesn't really look that good. So what we can do to improve this is actually use a new view available to us in iOS 16 called unavailable content view. So let's go into our category view. So create category, and it's actually quite simple to add this, right? All we literally need to do, all we need to do is that in our section here with our categories, we're just going to wrap this for each, in an if statement. So we're going to say here, if the category is empty, then we're going to show that view that I just mentioned, or else we're going to add in our for each in here. So we're going to just cut our for each for our categories and put that in the else block. But if it is empty here, we're going to create a unavailable, well, content unavailable view. So let's just see what happens now. If we run this now and we go to our create category screen where there's no categories, you'll now see we get this nice view here where it basically, just looks a lot nicer and just looks way better in my opinion. So let's actually copy this for our update and also as well our, create view. So I'm just going to copy this if here and we'll go into our update to do view. And then we'll just go into our section here and then we'll just put our picker in the else block. So we'll copy our picker, cut that, put that in here like so. And then we'll do a similar thing on our modify. So our create to do view. And in our create to do view, we'll also wrap that picker as well. Okay, cool, sweet. So let's run this. And then if we go into our edit, you can see now that we have no categories, and we can dismiss this. And in our new to view, we've also got the no categories as well. So you dismiss that as well. So a little challenge that I want you to do is that if you actually delete all of the items on the to-do list, I actually want you to add in a content unavailable view onto this screen here to basically give the user some information that, you know, there's no to-dos and you should create one. Damn, Daniel. So we now have an app that now has relationships, and it now operates with CRUD as well. Pretty sweet, right? But there's actually a whole bunch of other things you can do in SwiftData as well, such as dynamically filtering data. Now, if you want to learn how to do something like this, then check out the playlist that you see on the screen here. Since this playlist is basically a to-do list app series that shows you for free, well, it literally is a free course. I didn't intend it to be, but it is now. It's a free course that basically shows you how to build a to-do app using SwiftData. So this is actually something you could put onto the App Store. And also as well, if you're interested in learning about, you know, more about Swift UI, I also have a free playlist as well, which has over 90 videos showing you how to get started with Swift UI that you can see on the screen here. That's everything from me. I'll catch you all in a bit. Go Panthers. Deuces.